Back at it once again here with the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB as we talk some Chiefs football. One game in the books. We have a preseason game. It is done. What do we learn from it? What are we taking away? First of all, we'll talk about Trent McDuffie hinting at the fact that maybe a contract getting close with an extension. Yesterday, we'll talk a little bit about that. Were we impressed by Josh Simmons? How about Kingsley Suamataia? You ever seen a guy freight trained like that before by a linebacker? How many offensive linemen make this team? We'll get deep into that. Jason Brownlee, kudos for one Sam McDowell. He was impressive. Exactly what Sam had described him at. When should the Chiefs take Hollywood Brown off their first team? Robert Tonyan was another impressive performer in the preseason game. We'll talk about the cornerback depth. Where does that sit right now? Jeffrey Bossa, does he look the part, the rookie? What are we looking for in game number 2? We're talking about all that right here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here with the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. And let's just start with the overall impression. Game number 1. Jeff, what did you think? Riveting stuff. How long did you make it?
I think I got to the third series, and I started to kind of drift away. I kind of jolt myself back and got some Red Bull and made sure I went to a cold plunge to get my endorphins going, my testosterone going. I came back and I still fell asleep by halftime. It was look, it's what you thought it was going to be, which was not a whole bunch of starters playing. I thought the Cardinals looked horrible. You fumble your first 2 kickoffs. That's not great to watch. But, look, I think there are promising things. I think Josh Simmons, we'll talk about that, looked the part. I mean, he didn't do a whole lot, but you saw him move. You saw the agility. You saw what people get excited about. I thought that some of the receivers were impressive. We'll talk about Jason Brownlee. I thought Tyquan Thornton showed well. There are some, defensive mishaps, but again, I think ChrisRoland-Wallace did a pretty good job. So I think overall it was a positive first preseason game.
Yeah. How about you? Just an overall impression, Sam? What did you take away?
Yeah, I won't go through our whole rundown here.
Is there a theme to it?
Yeah, I was like, I'm thinking, oh yeah, we're talking about all this stuff, aren't we?
Yeah. I thought the starters, the starting offense played well, and the special teams was really good, and I think the Chiefs had a lot to clean up otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a fair way. All right. Let's start at the top where we said we were going to go with this, and start first of all with the Trent McDuffie. Sam, you and I touched on this a little bit on the radio show. Trent McDuffie asked by Kay Adams, about a contract, and he said things are looking good here in Kansas City, right? Like, do we take that to mean that an extension is imminent? Jeff, I'll start with you. What do you take when he says things are looking good in Kansas City when he's asked point blank about extending his contract?
I think it's a positive, certainly when the player is saying that, but Trent McDuffie also strikes me as the kind of guy who wouldn't be like, these guys suck. Like, they're not treating me right. Look, it's clear he wants to be here. I'm certain they like him as a player. I mean, he's obviously a talented player, and he's a good guy in the locker room. There's nothing to not like about Trent McDuffie. And if he's saying that, it tells me that at least whatever has been discussed, whatever's been thrown out, I think it's still early. I don't think there's going to be some contract coming out, finished in the next few weeks, unless it's going to be a much lower number than what we saw Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley get, or J.C. Horn. But it does tell me that it's a positive step. And I do think the more I've thought about this over the last, couple of weeks as we started talking about this topic, look, they overpaid for Nick Bolton. They made Trey Smith the highest paid guard in football. They paid a lot of money. They made Creed Humphrey the highest paid center. Maybe they are in this mode of, if we really like a guy and we want him to be here, we'll pay top dollar for him. We won't make this a difficult conversation. So I think that may be what he's saying, but there's also a lot of motivation for him to wait this out and take his time with it, because he'll make more money out of it.
Yeah, Sam, you said the same thing. He maximizes dollars by waiting, but he can, solidify the cash, make sure he gets it by signing early. I don't think I think if it does happen, he'll get the Sauce Gardner contract plus a couple of bucks. I think that's how it gets done now. If the Chiefs aren't willing to go there, I don't think it gets done now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the only way it really gets done now is if Trent McDuffie takes a discount. And, the full context of what he had said, just to reveal it, Soren, I'm going to sort of out myself here. When you had mentioned that to me on radio, I somehow hadn't seen that
really?
That he had said something.
I had not seen it either.
I just sort of talked my way through that. But the rest of what he said is in line with what he said at training camp the week earlier, as far as I'm letting my agents handle this so I can just focus on ball. I'm confident like that the payday is going to come at some point. He said, if I get paid, I get paid. I know it's coming right now. I don't really worry about it. That's in line with my agents are handling this, and it doesn't seem like something's imminent. I do agree that your one sentence suggests that he thinks there are conversations going on that are positive. And I mentioned on this podcast that I know for a fact that the Chiefs have reached out to his representatives, and I could see that alone being something that Trent McDuffie says things are looking good. They want me back. So I think it's hard to read a lot into that, just knowing the facts of it is that he would have to take a discount, I think, in order for this to get done, because that means he's not waiting to get paid when the market is higher than what it is now. Having said that, Trent McDuffie loves it here. He could be willing to take a discount. I think George Karlaftis could have gotten more money had he waited for 2 years. He didn't. He took the money now and just said, I want to get paid now. I love it here. Why am I going to go searching for something else? There's players who get in that mindset. Trent McDuffie is certainly allowed to get in that mindset too.
Yeah, I think with McDuffie, I think there is a contradiction there within the realm of everything. When he says, I'm going to let my agents handle it, if he's really letting his agency handle it, he won't be signing, because that's not what CAA does. Like, he's got one of the biggest representations there, and what they do is take everything to maximize the dollars. That's what they did with Trey Smith. Chiefs had reached out to Trey Smith the year earlier. A deal didn't get done. They went all the way to the end to maximize the dollars. So if he's letting the agency handle it, if it's just, you guys, you're the contract guys, you sign, you tell me when to sign, and I'll sign, then it will not get done now. If he is saying, I got agents who handle this, and he tells them, listen, take it right up to the beginning of the season, get every dollar, as long as it's more than Sauce Gardner, I'll sign. Walk them right up to it, and then right before the season, I don't want to step out on the field and risk, the tens of millions of dollars that I can be guaranteed right now. So get it done. If he's given them that edict, then it will get done. But if he leaves it just to the agency, I'm with you. Their MO is very, I think I've likened this, I think it was on this podcast, that they're kind of Boris-esque in how they do things. They're about pushing the envelope, pushing the deals always. And sometimes there are some players that backfires on. Not very often, but it does, because they generally have the best players, and so they've got a lot of leverage when they do it. They've got a lot of leverage in this one. So I think the Chiefs are going to have to be willing to go Sauce Gardner plus a little bit more. And then it'll be up to Trent McDuffie. Does he want to maximize the dollars, or does he want to get the most he can get from the Chiefs and put in the bank right now? It'll ultimately be his choice.
And I don't know how much of that sound you listened to on that, but the part that was more intriguing to me was after he made that comment, he talked about how close he was with his agent and how deep the relationship had gotten.
Best friends.
That's the part I caught, was like, this is not going to be like some simple, easy. That agent's going to be in his ear, guiding him down the road. And there's a lot of the NFLPA wants guys to get paid top dollar. There's a lot of pressure on the player to maximize their earnings in these situations. It's not just, hey, I like the team and I want to do what's right for the team. That's the side of it too that I'm sure Trent McDuffie has to think about.
Okay, all right, that's an important part of the important part of the equation. All right, let's move into the part about the game. Let's talk a little bit about Josh Simmons. Were you impressed with Josh Simmons, Jeff?
I mean, what I saw of him, I mean, he only had, I think this one pass play where they were throwing down the field and he actually had to set and really, maybe I missed, maybe it was two, but I mean, the first series that wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to see what he could do. But I like the way he moved. He looked athletic. He looked the part. I think that I can see why people are excited about him because he has a vibe to him that even at this stage last year, Kingsley Suamataia did not have. But it's a long way to go here. I mean, he was rushing against a guy I've never heard of. He was blocking against a rusher I've never heard of before. And I'm not going to put too much stock in that. But I think from what I saw, I can see the positives. I see why he's well liked.
Okay. What'd you see from Josh Simmons, Sam? Do you see, a budding star?
I thought Josh Simmons had as good a debut as the Chiefs could ask for, but it's a preseason debut. And so therefore I think you have to think about what we did see, but also what we didn't see. And I think what we did see was good stuff from Josh Simmons. What we didn't see is stuff that you don't see in training camp yet either, which are, extravagant blitzes, stunts from twists. And, he's only really faced 3 or 4 edge rushers before. He hasn't seen the best guys in the league yet. And so I think Josh Simmons has done all he can. And there's no way that the Chiefs, when they drafted him, as optimistic as they were, could have thought Josh Simmons would be at this point on August 12th. And so he's clearly ahead of schedule health-wise, and I think he's ahead of schedule performance-wise as well. I'm just saying I think it's okay to be optimistic about what's happened and where he's going, but also still believe that he still has boxes to check that aren't going to be checked until he gets into regular season action. None of us in preseason after the first 2 games last year were saying Kingsley Suamataia was going to be a problem, and he was a huge problem. I think Josh Simmons is significantly more talented, but my point is regular season's a different beast. Kingsley Suamataia did well in the preseason as well.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a good beginning. We didn't see the warning signs for Kingsley Suamataia. It looked different. I mean, I think Josh Simmons looks the part. Is he going to be a star? Is he going to be the best, left tackle in football? I don't know. But can he play a competent left tackle? I'm leaning more and more towards yes, that we're past that mark.
Can I ask Jeff, there was some people who, just because you're more into the technique, I think, than Soren and I are, there were some people that were saying that he was telegraphing, whether this was a pass or rush play based on his sets. I just wonder what you think the significance of that is.
Well, I mean, look, I think the significance of it is that when you get into the more sophisticated, the more accomplished pass rushers in this league, they're going to set you up. And they're going to they're going to have counter moves for what you're doing. They're going to get a feel for what you do best. They're going to feel for what you're not comfortable with. And that, what you're saying, that's going to be the big adjustment period for him, because I would say even through the first game of last year, there wasn't a Kingsley Suamataia problem. There wasn't a problem with coming out of the Ravens game about what he was doing or how he was doing it. And probably for a portion of the Bengals game, there wasn't that. And unfortunately, with this position, it's like playing corner. All it takes is 2 or 3 bad plays, and then you really are having a rough day, right? And that's what I'm saying. In watching him, they weren't running the kind of plays where he's going to have a problem dealing with. And he certainly looked like a guy who was trying really hard to make sure he had a strong debut. But he's going to have his moments. I keep saying it. And that's when we see that, that's when we're going to know what kind of player he is.
All pro left tackles struggle as rookies.
Yep.
And I just think that's the context we're trying to provide here. It's not pessimism I think Josh Simmons is going to be a much better pick than most 32nd overall picks. Like, I think they got a great value. There is no way the Chiefs would take back this pick. And I think some other teams ahead of the Chiefs in the draft are thinking, I'm kind of wishing we had taken Josh Simmons right now. Having said that, like, this is a really tough position to play as a rookie, and it's being plugged into a difficult offense. And you guys, more than me, have talked about the fact that the Chiefs don't help with their left tackles as much as a lot of other teams do. Like, this is a pressure-filled job for multiple reasons. The Chiefs play on national TV all the time, and when you're going to be playing a position in which only your mistakes are going to be shown. Chiefs fans I think, are in tune and smart enough to be watching Josh Simmons when he plays well. But from a national broadcast standpoint, you're the only game on TV. The only time the left tackle shows up is when he gives up the sack and when he screws up. That's a pressure position. And I'm just interested to see how he handles that aspect of it.
Well, and Soren has brought this up too, just that injury, the susceptibility to another injury. And when I think about Rashawn Slater being out for the season now with a torn patella, or I think about what happened in Philadelphia with Landon Dickerson, who just obviously survived the scare. Not wishing anything bad on the kid, but that's a real part of him too, is being able to stay healthy throughout this season. And when you really are jacked up to make an impression, that's kind of when you can get hurt.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because that is one of the knocks on the, or not one of the I don't know, some of the baggage that comes with that injury is that it makes you susceptible to other injuries, right? Your rate of injury, other injuries to that knee goes up. So I think it'll be a couple of years. You know, like we're all kind of, every time he goes down or is a little slow to get up, what is it? What is it? You know, you're going to have that kind of feeling. And then to your point, Billy Bill says Jeff Schwartz clocked him tipping plays right away. So I didn't see that, but I guess Jeff Schwartz probably had it on Twitter that he's detailing, like, you know, the legs way back, you know, was what a lot of people are saying, that he had the leg way back in the backfield on passing plays, and, you know, it's upside, you know, right next to him when it's a running play. So that I would think that that's something that is easy to fix, right? Like, get your leg up there, stop cheating. You know, you're giving it away.
You would think so. I've seen Juwan Taylor do it for 2 years.
It's been years. That's what I was thinking.
Yes, that's a fair point. That is a fair point. You have a you know, you ready to call him? Do you have a comp? Anybody want to give a comp for what he looks like out there? I mean, I'll say this: he looks the part. He looks athletic. He looks strong. You know, like there's a confidence to him as well. I don't think we're going to be having him pulled out of a game because he got beat once or twice. You know, I do see where the Kelceys come up with Trent Williams. I see where they're coming from. I don't like that because it's way too good a player, I think, out of the gates to start hanging around his neck. But
would you, Sven, you're the Chiefs, the actual Chiefs fan of the three of us on this podcast. If he turned into Eric Fisher's career, would you take that right now?
If right now, yes. Right now, I would take it because of the injury. That if I got basically two, you know, what did Fisher start?
Somebody just commented asking the same question, by the way. Just a super smart, smart. After I said it, super smart listener we have.
Is this we now know Rhett is the burner account for Sam.
Right. Yeah,
I like it. And I do.
You'd take that all day long, wouldn't you?
Thaddeus here. There are too many comments coming in here. Thaddeus said, "I love his nasty streak." I do too. I mean, I think it's confidence. You know, I think it's you know, there's a physicality to it. I don't think you play nasty unless you're confident in what you're doing.
And by the way, I would, just because I was in Arizona and I talked to him in the locker room after the game, and I just think people would be interested in it. He was totally comfortable chatting with us after the game in a way that I think some rookies are nervous about. And he was able to, I mean, he only played 11 plays, and the way he was able to analyze what he saw in the game, I thought was pretty telling. Now, it's not atypical for an offensive lineman to be some of the best at doing that. But he was really in tune with what he had just seen over the previous 11 plays when we chatted with him afterwards.
Yeah. I would take Eric Fisher because I'm worried about the health. So if you got that, but if you, I am optimistic. He looks better than Eric Fisher at first glance. I'll say that.
He has a higher floor and or he has a higher ceiling,
Yeah.
but also a lower floor because of the injury risk.
For sure. But I mean, I don't. Were you on the beat? I don't think you hadn't gotten to the Chiefs when Fisher was going.
No.
When Fisher came out, you immediately saw a guy who needed strength, right? And I don't see that here with Simmons. And
I don't think they're similar players to that.
No. But you saw a long basketball player that was playing tackle, right? You could see why they liked him. They liked the athleticism. You could see the feet, but he really was kind of overwhelmed at times, and then grew into the position, right? I think he lacked the confidence. He wasn't Kingsley Suamataia, but he didn't have the same kind of confidence that Simmons is playing with. So if you told me he's going to be as healthy, no, I'll bet on Josh Simmons being better, but the health makes it a really good question. Let's go to the other side, and that's Kingsley Suamataia. What did you see in Kingsley Suamataia, Jeff?
Well, I mean, we're all going to talk about the first blitz he got, right, when the linebacker ran through his face.
Don't we have to?
Yeah, I mean, it's like not often you see a linebacker like throw a guard out of the club. I mean, he was kind of like like the door got slammed in his face. He just went flying back, but I thought he was okay. I think that was one play. It was a blitz. I mean, he's going to be hard to judge in the same way Josh Simmons, because I don't think they're going to put these guys in really difficult situations in the preseason to where we're going to actually be able to look at them and say, all right, this is really something to worry about. But that play certainly opened my eyes to maybe his deficiencies. He didn't look like he had the strength to handle. If you can't handle a 230-pound linebacker, what are you going to do with a 290-pound, 310-pound tackle in your face?
That's one of the things, like, they talk about how athletic he is and his RAS score, and he has all these things, but he doesn't apply it on the football field right now, right? That's great that he can win, a combine Olympics, but he's not winning at playing football. And I think the problem is when I see that play, I see two things that are at work there. One, I think you saw what we've heard Sam say a lot of times about how he just abandoned his technique when things went to hell in a handbasket against the Bengals, and he was dropping his head and trying to spear him. He was almost like it was like a carnal instinct. It had become a street fight to him, and he's trying to do anything he can to keep the defender off and not maintaining his techniques. The techniques are there to help you, and in this case, you got to get your hips down. You got to absorb the blow. You're a big enough man to take on any linebacker. If you weigh 300 plus pounds of muscle, right? Like we're not talking about just some fat ass out there. Then if you get low, you can take it on, and then you stay over your feet. You're going to take a step or two back. It's going to knock you back, but you're big enough. It's pure physics. Like, you should not get rocked sideways. And so I see a guy that abandons the techniques. Like, the techniques are not instinctual to him. Right? They eventually become instinctual. Tim Grunhardt's been talking about, how Josh Simmons' hands are down and what that does and how that gets you a little bit of a forward lean, and that he needs to get his hands up and ready for it. You do that enough times, you're ready for it. It's like it was the first blitzing linebacker the man has ever seen. And that's what he either knows the techniques and abandons at the first sign of stress, or, to your point, Jeff, he's unbelievably weak. I mean, like, and I don't think that's the case. Yeah. So I don't know why what they're teaching him is not surfacing in the moment.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead, Jeff.
Now I was going to ask Sam, because he was there. No, you can address Soren's point, but I'm curious too. It felt at times like they were calling plays to make the offensive line comfortable. It felt like they were running some stuff that, screens and easy things, short passing plays. I'm curious if you got that impression, because it felt like they were trying to do things to make it easier on some of these young guys.
Yeah, I mean, I had said going into the game that I thought this was going to be a delicate balance with Kingsley Suamataia, specifically because I think the biggest change between week 1 and week 2 last year was confidence. Like, he just totally lost his confidence, and that's what caused him to abandon his technique. So you're trying to build up his confidence, but also you need to expose Kingsley Suamataia at some point to really see what you have there. And the other thing I'd mentioned to you guys, if you recall, I had said the one way that Kingsley Suamataia is getting beat in training camp sometimes is he's getting driven back. I've seen it happen. And it's not every play at all. It's not something to where you say, holy crap, is this guy a problem? Like, it's not to that level. But when he does get beat, that's the manner in which I've seen it happen in training camp. So seeing it happen in the game was not a shock to me because I've seen that happen. Like, I think I saw some people excusing him for stepping on Creed Humphrey's foot. Well, it's like, because he got driven back. Like, that's why they collided legs.
Yeah.
If he had held his ground, that doesn't happen. Like, that's not an excuse for what happened. That's the result of what happened.
Jeff, I want to ask you, like, when they play that tape in an offensive line room,
that's not good.
when they play that tape
Yeah.
in an all offense meeting, like, what is everybody saying? Right?
I don't think you say anything. I think you're just kind of like, everybody knows, right?
I think there's some exhales. I think there's some, I think, depends on the chemistry of your team. This is the kind of team that seems like it's all loving and supporting and we're all in it together. In other places, there are pricks on teams, right? There are guys who can play who are pricks. And there'll be some guys be like, whoa, it happens. And like, so if he is this fragile, he kind of needs that to be like, look, toughen up, kid.
I tell you, it's not so much what happens in the Chiefs room; it's what happens in opposing film sessions when they watch that. Because now all of a sudden, if I'm a defensive tackle, I'm lined up against this guy. I know exactly how I want to handle this.
What do you think Mbwike's looking at Baltimore when he turns on the tape on that and rolls it forward and backward?
Yeah. Oh, Zach Allen.
Oh, they're drooling. They're drooling when they see that kind of thing. And the DC's like, well, okay, let's bring the blitz right over him every time. He's got a problem with this, and they're going to come at him. And the tape of last year tipped him off. So they're going to immediately look at him and go, what are his issues?
Yeah. Well, and Sam's brought this up before too. He brought it up earlier in the conversation, which is when you start seeing more exotic things and people are messing with the communication because you got a rookie left tackle next to you, that's going to affect the way Josh Simmons plays.
Yeah.
That's going to be problematic if they can't get that figured out.
All right. How many offensive linemen do they keep? We'll talk about it right after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot.
This episode of Red, Gold, and Bold is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
All right, let's talk about what they're going to keep on this offensive line. You got to feel their history here in recent years under Andy Reid, 10, 10, 9, 10 the last 4 years. The last 6 years ago, last 7, I'll add 3 more, 9, 9, 10. But 3 of the last 4, he's kept 10 offensive linemen. Are there 10 offensive linemen worth keeping on this team right now, Sam?
There's 9 obvious. Like, I've never seen such. I mean, Andy Heck today had characterized this as, a lot of battles going on. Like, I don't see that in camp. Like, their 5 starters are clearly going to be these 5 guys going into the season. And then their backups are Wanya Morris, Jalen Moore, Caliendo, and Norzad. Like, those 9 are set. 4 backups are set, 5 starters are set. The only question you have is, over these next 2 preseason games, does Esa Pole do enough to justify a spot. I don't think CJ Hansen has done enough to justify a spot.
No.
Now, I did think it was interesting that he played more offensive snaps than any other player on your roster. They're trying to determine what they have out of him. Pole played a lot of snaps as well. So do they give these guys a long run again in the second game? Are they determining, do they want to keep 10? If they do, though, it's going to cut back from, God forbid, keeping 7 receivers. Or there's actually another thing at play.
Yeah.
You know, I have figured out they actually might keep 8 wide receivers, because if Rashee Rice is suspended, he won't count towards the 53.
Right.
And then they could keep 7 wide receivers. And so basically you got 8 guys. And I could see him doing that. Or you could say, okay, this is the opportunity to keep the extra offensive lineman on the roster for a bit.
What do you see with the line, Jeff?
I agree. I think 9 is a safer number because of what's happening, what will happen at receiver. I think the emergence of Robert Tonyan, who we'll talk about, I'm tipping all the rundown today, makes tight end a lot more interesting. Four tight ends seems like a lot, but it seems like they also have a good reason to think about that. If Jared Wiley is someone they want to hold on to, I think Tonyan clearly has established himself as a guy who should be on this roster, the way he's played, what I've seen, what I've heard about him so far. And then the running back situation, they got 4 guys there. And so at some point, if you want to have the luxury of deciding between those other positions, you're going to have to sacrifice somewhere else. And it seems like offensive line is probably the most sensible spot to do that, at least right now.
It feels like, listen, I'm going to tell you, if I were in one of those meetings, I would tell them, you got your 4 starters. And then my 5th best player, in my opinion, is Hunter Norzad, or is Jalen Moore. But the comments is definitely, I'm assuming it's Jalen Moore. I haven't really seen enough to say definitively, but I'm assuming he at least looked solid. And
he's played some guard. He hasn't played a ton of guard.
And that was the thing today, Sam, when I asked about Jalen Moore, specifically to Andy Heck about how he looks at guard, he was kind of like, oh, he's a tackle. We put him there. Everybody might need him. But I was stunned at how much he just is like, well, he's our tackle, and in a pinch he could play guard.
Isn't there one explanation for that though? You didn't like what you saw from him at guard. Is an explanation for that.
Is that Heck didn't like what he saw at guard?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, if you don't like what you saw from him at guard, that's the answer you would give.
But then don't you have to punt? How is it that, Kingsley Suamataia is going to be saved because guard, you have bumpers. It's so much easier than being out on an island at tackle. Then how could you possibly look at Moore and be like, I don't like him at guard, but at tackle out here on an island? Like I think, yes, that would be an explanation. I think it's awful. And you're clearly lying to yourself about one of the 2 players, if that's the answer. I think that they're viewing, I think they want Kingsley. I think they've been told Kingsley Suamataia is going to work, and nobody wants to step on that hallowed ground. I think he's maybe the 8th best offensive lineman on this team. Jalen Moore's better. I think Hunter Norzad's better. Mike Caliendo, who I'm not that high on, but I think he's better. And as far as Wanya Morris, why? Like I would put Pole above Morris just off the potential that we haven't worked with him for a year, that hopefully there's more upside. I don't see anything in Morris. Am I the only one?
Experience, I think, is probably what they see. I thought he played okay at right tackle once.
Okay, I need to look more. I need to give it
better on that side than he was at left, knowing that there was a low bar for what he performed at left.
I respect your opinion, so I need to look closer. Because if you saw something, then I need to look closer. And it may just be I'm carrying baggage from the frustrations of last year as a fan.
Well, we're not talking about the documentary on this show. I've seen all the documentary, and there was a play that you remember Wanya Morris got benched in the Raiders game, right? And it was after a goal line sack where the no-name guy from the Raiders had beaten him all game. And I remember after the game, I was we talked about it on this podcast where I could not figure out what Patrick Mahomes said after the game. And I was sitting there sending it to buddies. Can you lip read what Mahomes is saying here right before Wanya Morris gets pulled? He says, I've got nothing to do with it. It was Andy Reid's decision. I later had somebody tell it to me, and it shows up on the documentary where Mahomes says it's the same bleeping move. And so his frustration is 100% in that moment. Like, he is screaming to the sideline, this guy's getting beat by the same move over and over again. And I think we all have seen Patrick Mahomes play long enough to know it's really rare for him to call out a teammate on the field like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So you watched the whole documentary, the ESPN deal?
Yeah.
How long is that?
It's six 1 hour episodes. I mean, but we've had it for 10 days or something like that.
Sorry, got off topic. I was like, what?
Let's talk about Jason Brownlee. Sam, this has been your guy. You've talked about him. You said he's a pro. His catch radius, which was talked about today by Embry, the receivers coach, certainly looked like the guy you were talking about on that touchdown catch.
Yeah, I mean, I still just think that the guy's an NFL player, and I think that highlight makes it to where he's almost guaranteed to be an NFL player this year. If it's not here, it's somewhere else. But you and I talked about this on the radio show today, Soren, but I think it's worth repeating is that I think the throw itself is even more relevant than Jason Brownlee catching it, because it's not a throw that Patrick Mahomes is comfortable making. At least historically, he's thrown the fewest tight window passes in the NFL each of the last two seasons, and he decided he has a guy on the field he was comfortable throwing a back shoulder fade to in the end zone on a first down rep. And so that speaks to the player as well, though. Like, you've got to have the receiver. He's not throwing that pass to Xavier Worthy. He doesn't even throw that pass to Travis Kelce. And he has no better connection with anybody in his career than he had with Travis Kelce. And so he's telling us that Jason Brownlee has something, a quality on the team, a trait that nobody else in that room has. And they've tried other guys like this with Justin Ross. I put doubt in the DeAndre Hopkins addition for this exact reason, because he doesn't like to throw these passes. They didn't throw these passes to DeAndre Hopkins after that Tampa game. And they even had, they thought that Jody Fortson would be this guy for him, to this end zone threat. So to me, the only relevance of this talent is that you've got to be willing to use it. Are you willing to throw this pass in a game or not?
Yeah, Jeff, what did you see?
Same thing. I mean, look, he looks like he's a long receiver. He made a great catch, got off the line really well. But that the point Sam made is the point I was going to make about they just don't have a lot of guys who were like this. They don't have them for a reason, because they always want fast guys. And so even when they have had players like this, they get lost in the shuffle because they want to do so much stuff down the field. It's very hard to say we want to throw the football down the field and do all this great stuff, and then have a guy like that who's going to probably get 5 to 6 targets. It's hard to pull off. And so I think the ideal thing, it would be that Rashee Rice becomes that kind of an option. But Sam's right. There's no one else who you can think of, maybe Juju, who could pull that kind of play off. And I've always felt like Mahomes, and I said it last week, when it comes to making tight window throws and taking more risks, I just felt like when he came out of college, he was such a gunslinger type person that they coached that out of him. And he probably watched guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and people like that and the way they operated, and thought, I want to be that kind of quarterback who's not turning the ball over and not making these big mistakes. And I think it's hard to get it out of somebody, and it's just as hard to get it back, And so I think it was a good sign what happened with Brownlee, and I think I like his talent. But yeah, I do. I think he's going to be a big part of this team this year. I don't see him maybe not even being here.
I think, being a big part of this team, he needs to be able to do, like, can you keep a guy just for the goal line? If you're going to keep 8 wideouts, I guess you can. I'm sorry to cut you off, but yeah.
I think that's a really important point. And I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast. I wrote last week about their red zone struggles a year ago. Last year, they were 21st in touchdown percentage as far as red zone trips converted to touchdowns, 21st in the NFL. The year before, they were like 19th. So below average for this offense the last 2 years. The year before, so 3 seasons ago, they were second in the NFL in red zone percentage. if you take that percentage that they were able to convert in 2022, which was like 71%, and you applied it to last year, like let's say the rest of the offense was the same, but you just improved in the red zone. I multiplied it by the number of trips they had to the red zone, all that. They would have been the 6th best scoring team in the league last year, rather than 15th. That's how much like your red zone efficiency changes the overall production of your offense. This is a guy who can help them in the red zone. I talked to Jason Brownlee after the game, and what stood out to me is that he said, I knew immediately he was going to throw that pass to me, and that this is how we were going to get open based on the way the cornerback was playing. And Patrick Mahomes said the exact same thing, talked to him obviously separately. It's not like they were standing side by side. And he said, I knew it was going his way because the cornerback is playing, this leverage, which Jeff would know better than any of us. Cornerback's playing at this leverage, so I knew I was going to throw it to his outside shoulder. Like, this is a guy he's never taken an NFL snap with, and they're already seeing that play the same. Like, you can use this, but will you use it? And I still think we have reason to doubt that they would use this.
If they said you're keeping 6, right? Get him on the team for me. Who are your 6, Sam?
I don't think you can, because I think then you're cutting Tyquan Thornton, who's not getting cut.
I don't think they're cutting Tyquan Thornton, but why is JuJuSmith-Schuster? He's making $1 million, not 7 or 8. Hollywood Brown's making $7 million. I mean, you can make a case cut him. Juju's not playing 17. I don't think JuJuSmith-Schuster should be. You don't save anything to cut him over keeping him, but if you think this guy can play, he should be able to do anything that JuJuSmith-Schuster can do and be healthier.
Can I tell you what I think their response to that would be, which is that JuJuSmith-Schuster has emerged as the clear leader in that room. He's the guy that I've seen at training camp talk Jalen Royals through routes after practice. Literally, they're the only 2 guys standing in the corner of the field. All the other receivers have left. Like, I think he's the clear leader in a room that, to be frank, I think has lacked leadership for a little while now.
Well, does he also, who replaces Rashee Rice when he gets suspended? I mean, you trust Jason Brownlee to fill that void?
And Jason Brownlee's not a rookie. He's been in the league for, 2 years
now? That's what I'm saying.
Years,
but do you trust him to fill that void and saying you would trust Juju? I'm with you. I'm not a big Juju fan. I think he's washed.
I am a fan, and it's hard for me to say this because I am kind of a fan of what he does. But I'm a fan of guys who can play, who can, be in uniform every week. And I don't think you can expect that from JuJuSmith-Schuster. I think they nurse him along, make him the wide receiver coach then.
Player coach.
Yeah. No, just coach. It's just a wide receiver.
Greg Lewis.
Problem solved,
Just a hell of an announcement. What an announcement that would be.
I mean, it happened if you remember the old there was an HBO NFL show back in the day, not a bad show for its time, called First and 10.
Oh yeah.
O.J. Simpson was in it. And when they cut the running back and made him a coach, he couldn't run anymore.
Is that where you came up with this idea?
No,
Shannon Tweed was the owner.
After I heard it, I'm like, oh, and I was like, oh yeah, that is what when you said, oh, that'd be a hell of an announcement. They did have an announcement on that. Wait, what'd you say about the owner?
Shannon Tweed was the owner, right?
Was that? I know it was a woman owner. It was like every other sports thing. They try to encompass like the last 30 years of stories all into one deal. And yes, I believe the quarterback was dating the owner or something. It's a little bit going on there. Anyway, let's move on to Robert Tonyan. Did he make this team, Sam?
Yeah, he's a lock. I mean, he's had a terrific training camp. What we saw from him in the game is just a carry over to there. I'm not sure I've seen him drop a pass in camp. Like he's had a great camp. The thing that stands out most to me when I watch him is how was this guy in a practice squad last year? How did nobody in the NFL find a use for this guy last year, including the team in Kansas City that had him on the practice squad? Like, they were pretty thin down the depths of their tight end roster last year. I'm surprised that he wasn't, part of it.
Yeah,
he was pretty beat up right towards the end of his run in Green Bay, wasn't he? I thought that he kind of faded.
He did.
Yeah, and then Minnesota signed him at the onset of last year, and I think they played him 5 games. He didn't catch a pass, and he's talked about the fact that he feels healthier. But But yeah, I mean, he's ahead. Jeff mentioned this 5 topics ago, but he's ahead of Jared Wiley on this depth chart. And
he has to be.
I still have questions about exactly what they're expecting from Jared Wiley this year, and what that means for the rest of the depth chart. But to me, if you keep Jared Wiley, he's your 4th guy right now.
Did you like Wiley's play got called back, so it doesn't show in the box score, but he had about a 20-yard little catch kind of on the Bailey Zappi
illegal man downfield, yeah.
RPO and kind of leaking out, and the line starts going down. I mean, he looked athletic running at that point. But that's another one. Is the knee going to be swelling up? They've already dealt with that in training camp.
Yeah, they've had to sit him out because it's swelling up. And so I just don't think like Jared Wiley, it would be unfair to judge Jared Wiley in what he is based on what we've seen from this camp. Because you'd be punishing him for coming back early.
Right.
Like, the guy obviously worked his ass off in rehab to get back. He didn't tear his ACL till November of last year. Here he is in training camp in July and August. He deserves credit for that. But it's also like we're not seeing the fully healthy Jared Wiley right now.
Last 5 years, 4 tight ends, 3 tight ends, 3 tight ends, 4 tight ends, 4 tight ends. How many do they keep, Jeff?
I would think 4.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to see them cutting Jared Wiley, who's only in his 2nd year with the injury situation, like say I mentioned, and Tonyan to me is the guy. But again, it begins to screw the math up. At some point, you got to start saying, well, Elijah Mitchell goodbye, or is 7 wide receivers sustainable? Is Nico Remigio going to be a guy who doesn't survive? I mean, it doesn't make sense numbers wise in other places if you're going to go with 4 tight ends. But I think Tonyan, it sounds like blasphemy right now, but he looks a lot more productive than Travis Kelce did last year in that spot. Yeah.
We'll talk about the defensive backs after you hear from our friends at Frontier Justice.
This episode of Red, Gold, and Bold is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Where do we sit with the corners, Sam? What do we take away? Christian Fulton's back at practice, so he's going to start working into the mix here in a little bit. But off what we saw, where do the corners stand?
I think it's sneakily a worry right now, their cornerback depth. And, we talked to Dave Merritt today. You were there, Soren. I thought he had a couple of unusual comments. Dave Merritt's the best guy that we ever have at the podium. But you heard me twice ask about Najee Johnson. The first was just, Jalen Watson's hurt. So I follow up and said, well, what kind of camp is Najee Johnson having? And what he likes about Najee Johnson is when he gets beat, he reacts well to it. And it's like, well, he seems to have some experience, I guess, right now in that. And then with Noel Williams, he basically implied that he doesn't know his assignments and that he's frustrated that, hey, you're only playing one position right now. I got ChrisRoland-Wallace playing 3 positions. I got Shamari Connor playing 3 positions. You're playing 1. Like, you need to know this stuff. And again, I'm taking that a step further than his actual words were, but that was, to me, the clear implication about that player. Then you've got Jalen Watson, who's hurt. You've got Christian Fulton, who I don't know if we can say is definitively going to be ready for week 1. And so now you're just, you're talking Trent McDuffie and ChrisRoland-Wallace. And like, those are the 2 guys who don't have like injury issues about, or you can't say that Dave Merritt made these comments about today. And so, like I said, I think it's kind of sneaking up on them as what's this going to look like? And by the way, Jeff said the Cardinals look terrible. I will point out every pass Kyler Murray threw got caught. Now, one of them he threw right to Jaden Hicks. It almost looked like Hicks was his intended receiver. The other 7 he completed. Like, it was later in the game that Najee Johnson got beat and he tackled the guy for a DPI to avoid it being a worse play. Like, their defensive backfield got beat in this game.
Jeff, did it look elite to you?
Yeah, we'll reserve the right to use that word until much later in the season. But
they've given up fewer yards than anybody.
Yeah. Well, look, Sam's right. Look, I said this when Christian Fulton was out, or that this is a big issue, and they got a lot of bodies. I don't know how many players they got back there, and that includes the safeties. I know Roland-Wallace played well, and he did some good things. I think you got to play him in a specific role to get the best out of him. I think
really because their mindset is kind of like he can play any role.
They don't play him on the outside. They play him at nickel and then safety,
True.
or where they're playing.
Yeah. I was talking about playing him safety and corner.
Yeah, yeah. And the only corner we're just seeing was inside. He actually got the safety or the pick as a safety in that game.
That's what I was thinking. So, man, so again, it's like, until you figure out who you want to play on the outside, I think it's all going to be a big mystery and a concern, because we had this conversation many times over the course of last year, and I don't think it still gets enough discussion even now that they were not a very good secondary. People want to act like, oh my God, the numbers, look at the numbers, they were great, but there were a lot of big plays the secondary gave up. And I don't know how Najee Johnson survives the cut. I don't know what he's done. Like, just like you talked about Juju, what he's done or what he will do in the next few weeks to say, okay, he should be on this team based on the way he's performed. And so if Josh Williams, who seems to not really be in the mix anymore, if Noah Williams can't get it, all these guys we talked about as potentially doing stuff, they're not doing it. And so what you're left with is, Trent McDuffie being really good, and maybe Jaden Hicks having some potential. Like, that's not a great secondary.
Yeah, the Dave Merritt comments they really stood out. I mean, it seemed like he was taking an opportunity to send a message to some people through the media with the way he commented about it. And
the Noah Williams was intentional. I think it was happenstance the way he replied to my Najee Johnson comment. But it could be that he couldn't come up with a lot of great stuff to say. Like, that's where we're reading between the lines. You're absolutely right on Noah Williams. He's trying to send a message through the media. You need to know your assignments.
For sure. Absolutely. Jeff, did you like what you saw in Jeffrey Bassa?
He was all right. I mean, again, I think he's got a bright future. I do certainly feel like the way his movement, it looks like a bigger safety out there running around. Had a strong, he got banged up. I don't know what he did, the shoulder or something.
That was weird because he tackled a quarterback and came up hurt somehow.
Yeah, but you could see him being used. You could see Spagnuolo having a lot of flexibility with him, and certainly like making Dutranquil very replaceable. So I think he's and certainly being a good special teams player too. At the very least, he should be great on that.
Yeah, Sam, did you like what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff's right about his size. I mean, even when he comes in training camp, like, he looks like a small linebacker or a big safety. And when he just plays linebacker, like, they take Nick Bolton out of the game and put Bassa in, there's a clear size difference between those guys. But I thought he played pretty well. I didn't think he was like an incredible standout in the game, but he's a guy who's learning multiple spots right now and also learning to potentially like call the defense. Like, he's got a lot that they're putting on his plate right now. And I think it's shown up in training camp that there's a lot he's got to keep track of right now, and that once that becomes second nature to him, I think you'll see a different gear from him.
Yeah, I saw a little bit more. I mean, I think he ought to be fast because he is small, so he damn well better be fast. But I thought he was quick to diagnose. I thought he was willing to stick his nose in there. I liked what I saw. But I don't like watching a guy get up slow, just tackling the quarterback. Like, that's a problem. Like, is he so small that he's going to be hurt all the time? That was one of my concerns. What do you want to see next game, Jeff?
A lot of the same things that I wanted to see going into this game. You want to see more of the offensive line. I believe this is the game where you're going to start seeing more first-team action on offense. Some of these receivers we talked about flashing. You want to see them be more involved. I want the play calling to be a little more aggressive so you can actually get a better feel for what these guys can do on the offensive line. So I want to see them challenged more and certainly better play in the secondary.
Okay, Sam?
Yeah, what stands out to me is that what Jeff just said, this answer is identical to game one. Like, I think the Chiefs should want to see their offensive line challenged. And that's the left side of their offensive line. Like put Kingsley Suamataia in the spots he's going to be put in games, and make absolute sure that he's what you think he is based on what you've seen in training camp, and that you're not surprised the way you were surprised a year ago and then have to all of a sudden find these Band-Aid solutions. Know what you got now, and that's by playing him a lot of snaps in this game.
Yeah, I want to see them, give more to Brownlee. I mean, I want to see more than just a goal line. Can he run? Let's see him run. I mean, the Jets kept him. I mean, he was one of the storylines of Hard Knocks a couple of years ago when they did it with the Jets. It was him and one other kick returner, undrafted wideout.
Did you see that? I asked Andy about him after the game, and he said that he thought he played well, and he said it wasn't just the touchdown catch. And I'm thinking, well, it was the only catch he made. And then he said, I know he didn't have any other catches, but he ran some good routes out there. And so that was telling, I thought, that he pointed out that he thought and if you notice the play that the Chiefs challenged and didn't get was with Brownlee, and he was open on that play. That was a pretty horrendous throw that could have been made if the pass got out of the hand earlier.
Yeah. I like to see him. I'd like to see a pass rush start to appear, that would be nice. Less talky, more rushy. There's a lot of conversation about the pass rush and not seeing a whole lot of it. So, and not engineered, not manufactured, not coming with a safety or something like that. Like, let's see some defensive linemen beat somebody. It's okay. You can do it in a game for sure.
You want some more Bailey Zappi?
No, I've seen that. I really have. That was. I wasn't even going to go there, but like for a guy who's played and won games in the NFL, could you have looked any worse? I mean,
he looked bad.
That was rough. That was a hard watch. You can support the Red Gold and Bold podcast by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. You can give them a call at 816-484-3338. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, and our friends at Frontier Justice, with locations in Lee Summit, Kansas City, Kansas, Jenks, Oklahoma. Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training, all under one roof. You can visit them online at frontier-justice.com to learn more. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red Gold and Bold Podcast.